So how did it come to be that a film about the failure to hire women directors in Hollywood is directed by a guy?
There is a misconception that I was hired for this project. But the reality is this project was developed by my company. I had made a film for HBO in 2013 called Casting By, about the profession of the Hollywood casting director. In the process of making that film, I realized why casting directors was such an unsung profession, that 75% of the membership of the Casting Society of America is female. And I realized then the roadblocks that women face in Hollywood, how they're not given the respect or the opportunity they deserve, or the recognition they deserve. In 2015, I was approached by Jenny Peters, who loved Casting By, and asked Alon and I, when we were over coffee, would we be interested in doing a documentary about the larger issues that women face in Hollywood. We didn't think we're men, we shouldn't be telling this story. We felt very invested in this injustice, and that we had to do something about it, because we had the power to raise the money, we had the resources to make the film, and we thought, let's spend the next 3 years, let's go down this journey and let's figure out why these problems exist. I grew up in a very conservative household, and the word feminism was a dirty word. And we actually opened the film with that joke from Geena about the word feminism. And I'm like, equal rights amendment, what is that? Aren't we all created equal? That's what I've learned in school. And I learned it wasn't the case, and I was very young when that happened. And I learned that. I developed my activism as a feminist through the activism of a man. When Alon and I came to you and asked you to be a part of the film, what brought you on board?
I remember that I couldn't say yes fast enough, but hearing about your passion and what it was about, I definitely wanted to help in any way that I could, but also be part of it and share my experiences on camera as well.
If you remember, the first 2 interviews were before the Me Too in Time's Up
That's
movement.
right. That's right.
Yeah.
And then we did the 3rd interview. Do you feel like there was a difference in what you felt you could say on camera between those interviews?
I've perceived such a difference in this industry after the Me Too happened. I'm not saying it's all fixed and it's all better, but in that it's okay to talk about now, and very openly and very unapologetically. You know, if someone finds out their co-star's making twice as much as they are, they say it. My peers and I felt like you must never complain. You have to always, you know, get along, make sure everybody likes you. And the worst thing you could ever do is be a squeaky wheel. Even if I had an idea about maybe a line change or something, I always had to think about, well, how am I going to couch this? How am I going to say it? And maybe I can make them think it's their idea, or maybe I can make it into a joke and they'll take it seriously or something. I realize it's all different. You could just talk about it now, and to see how many women are talking on your film and really, you know, being very honest and revealing about their feelings is fantastic.
How do you see workplace discrimination connected to sexual harassment and abuse?
Sexual harassment is but one form of discrimination that can be experienced in the workplace. And one of the things I think has become very clear in the wake of Me Too's re-elevation is that workplaces that are vulnerable to sexual harassment are also workplaces where you're more likely to see problems with hiring, you're more likely to see problems with pay. All of these are threads of a problematic workplace culture, and they're interwoven.
You can be discriminated against because of your gender and not necessarily sexually
That's
harassed.
Right. That's exactly right. It is one type of discrimination that is actionable under Title VII, but so are all of these other types of gender discrimination: hiring, pay, promotions, etc.
Title VII.
Yeah.
How come it has not been effectively forced in Hollywood since 1964?
Title VII is the federal anti-discrimination statute, and it goes back more than 50 years. One of the things that I think is really important about Title VII is that it requires us to understand who is at fault. In the context of a feature film, there are crazy corporate structures created to allow that film to go forward, right? It's not always attached to the studio. It might be its own LLC, who signs the paychecks, and all of those things are important to the enforcement of Title VII. And in the modern gig economy, which, you know, we just see flourishing, Title VII has some gaps that we need to fix.
Is there anything the audience can do to kind of move that legislation forward?
Absolutely. I think it is incredibly important to call both state representatives in your state houses, as well as your federal representatives and your senators, both in Congress, both in the House of Reps and in the Senate, to say, you have to support these measures to make Title VII cover more people in the economy.
I really do feel like we're at the beginning of a tipping point. What I'm really waiting for is the director situation to change, because even though there's been a little progress, it's not, it needs to be wholesale progress where it's just as likely to be a female director as a male director.
We're seeing an uptick in TV directors, but not so much in feature film and studio features.
Right.
The film really covers the stereotypes that go around with who a director should be, what characteristics a director should have, and all the gender stereotyping and implicit bias that go with that. The idea of a general marshaling this big set, and implicit bias teaches us that you automatically think about a man for that role.
People have known the numbers for decades. Like when I've been working on the on-screen representation, people are shocked when I have the data that shows you're leaving out so many female characters. People are appalled, and why are we doing that? Let's not do that. And so the data almost does the work for you, but it does nothing to make people, what? We only hire 4% female directors? Why are we doing that? Let's change. It does nothing. So it's a completely different kind of, I guess it's conscious bias rather than unconscious bias.
That was an incredible awakening for us at David Yurman.
So what got you guys involved?
We are a company that is 80% female, co-founded by a woman, Sybil Yurman, led by a woman, myself, and a large part of our workforce is female executives. I screened this movie for, I think, maybe half of our employee population, so over 600 employees, and I can't tell you the kind of resounding support it received from all ages and, male, female, all ethnicities, all ages, who just really are behind it and moved by it.
So is it good business for companies like yours to get involved in these kind of social causes?
I think people are really thinking twice about their workforce. And I also think, in the world in which we live, different generations of our employees have very serious interests in making sure that the workplace represents their interests and their passions. And this is definitely one that exists among the younger generation.
So what is this beautiful bracelet on Geena's wrist?
Geena designed this beautiful motif on a classic David Yurman bracelet that reflects intersectionality.
Because there's no symbol so far for intersectionality, which is, the way we now express things. We're not just talking about white women, obviously. We're talking about every possible type of women. So this is actually, it's a little equal sign in the middle, and then the spokes going out from it all represent, the different ways that you can be underrepresented. You can put your own initials or whatever you want in there. Yeah, and you've been very generous sharing the profits for this bracelet with my institute. We're very grateful for that. Yeah.
We're a big believer and supporter.
So the GDIQ was developed 2012 to 2015-ish.
Yeah.
And when I talked to the guys at Google, they had mentioned that they're going to be doing all these other new cool stuff, like being able to tell what professions women have.
Oh, yeah.
Just by the way their vocal intonation, the way they look visually. Have we gotten to that point yet?
We're working on all of that. We're going to be able to tell the power dynamics between the characters, because you could have a lot of female characters, but if all the male characters are above them in rank, that's important. We can tell what kinds of words people use what kind of adjectives they use to describe people, and we can tell. Well, we're now we're the first research tool like this that can discern gender for children. We can do race now, which is exciting. One interesting thing we found out was that when there's a a female star of a movie starring a female, she is on screen and speaks only a third of the amount of time as when there's a male star.
We are doing a screening with the Editors Guild, and we're going to put that question to them.
love it.
Can I come?
Yeah, of course.
Because they're the ones cutting away.
Right.
We found, I don't know if I talk about this in the movie, we found that when a woman is talking, she's not on screen as much as when a man is talking. In other words, they're cutting away to maybe to the man, to a plant, I don't know. Nobody's telling them cut away from the woman when she's speaking.
Right.
But
Does that reflect implicit bias?
yes, that editors would be horrified
if they
to
knew.
learn that they knew that.
We need to make them conscious.
So when we did our early studies, there was one particular on G-rated movies, and we found that in some G-rated animated movies, the crowd scenes were only 17% female characters. So I've given millions of presentations at studios and whatever, and men particularly will be like, but I did that. That was me. What was I thinking? Why did I do that?
Yeah.
So one male animator said, I drew a scene in a restaurant this morning, and every person I drew was male. The waiters, the patrons, and everything. I'm the problem.
What is the inclusion rider, and where's it at now?
Yeah, it's a really remarkable thing. I worked with two other women, Stacey Smith and Fanchon Cox, to develop contract language that A-listers can take into their negotiations with studios to help force an awareness of that same implicit bias in the casting process for the smaller roles on screen and also for the hiring of crew behind the scenes, so that we really slow down that hiring process and say, that role, does that doctor really need to be a man? It's actually being implemented, which is very exciting. There are folks like Michael B. Jordan who have taken it into their first look agreements with both Warner and Amazon. And I think as the next 12 months go by, we'll really start to see whether the data reflects those changes.
Whenever I have meetings presenting the research, I always say, here's ideas for how to make your scripts more gender balanced, and it can be really easy and fun. And the easiest thing to do is to go through the script and change a bunch of first names to female. Absolutely. And it was written as a male. Now it's a woman. It's going to be unstereotyped.
Yes.
And probably much more interesting. Another tip is that you have to write in the script, a crowd gathers, comma, which is half female. And then it will be on the set.
So you have to spell it out.
Once it's in the script, it will happen. Just do a gender pass. Just say, all right, now it's done. We're going to make this, but let's just go through who can become female, and then cast me.
Absolutely.
You can check out the research that my institute has done and see what we're up to and get involved if you like. It's cjane.org is our website.
Go to accountable.com, acntbl.com, and give us your email, and you can keep in touch with us. We'll send you a newsletter out every quarter and let you know what's happening with the film and with the movement. Thank you.
Another thing you can do is to pay it forward. Go support female directors when their films are in the theater. Vote with your dollars.
Thank
you, everybody, for coming.